river. Oh, there's Rick, early as usual, always trying to make me look bad. Morning, Rick.
Morning, Andrew.
We're back at the Deschênes Rapids, or the third portage from the Chaudière portages. So I guess today what we're going to do is we're going to cover off the distance that's been covered from the last portage, and then some history of here, and then we'll have a look at the Elmer Hydro ruins as well as we go.
So where we left the second portage, we've been poling and lining all the way up to this portage, and we arrive in this place that the Algonquin called Mitigo-Mijocan. Mitigo-Mijocan because Mitigo-Mij means red oaks, and Ocan is the suffix that means the place. So this is the place where the red oaks grow. It was the third portage of the Chaudière, and the reason why we call it the Three Portages of the Chaudière is because you have the Chaudière Falls, then the Little Chaudière Rapids, and then you have, above the Deschênes Rapids, you have what used to be called Chaudière Lake. It's now called, in the modern era, Lac Deschênes, but settlers and everyone before called it Chaudière Lake. So this was called, in the French era, it was called the Portage du Haut, and in English, of course, it's the Upper Portage. So the portage has essentially been obliterated by industry and all of the human activity in this area since the settlers arrived. This area we're standing at would essentially be the summer landing area. Spring landing would probably be a little more downstream when the water is really flowing high. So the only parts remaining of the portage would be the landing here, where you begin the portage upstream, and the landing at the end, where you continue your journey on to the Chats Falls.
So Rick, here we are at the Deschênes ruins, a place that I haven't really known for a super long time, even though I used to come down in this area when I was a kid. But I don't really know anything about it. So what do you want to tell me about it?
None of these ruins and none of these installations, of course, were here at the Upper Portage beyond 200 years ago. But when, of course, the settlers arrived, they began to harness the falls for their mills. The first settler to arrive here was James McConnell, who came here from Prince Edward Island. He arrived in 1802 in the second wave of settlers with his brothers William and Robert, and he settles just below the rapids here. James McConnell then leases the land right here where the village first begins to grow. And he leases this piece of land in 1810 and digs a mill race. So he digs a canal that must have led to a mill. We don't have any record of exactly when he built that mill, but we assume it was soon after 1810 because that's why he leased the lot. The mill race is the old mill race, not to be confused with what we see here. This is the modern mill race that was built probably around 1860 by Robert Conroy, and this led to the improved mills. And there were two mills there. There were two other sawmills over on the opposite shore. And so what you had is the old mill race built in 1810 around, and you had this that so many people have confused for a log slide or timber slide, but it was not a timber slide. Then you have the hydro ruins, and these ruins were built around, these particular ruins were built the installation was built in 1890, and it was the hydro facility that powered the Hull Electric Railway.
So Rick, I see you've dragged me down into this godforsaken ravine. What are we looking at here?
We're just up from the mill race, the modern mill race that we just looked at, and I want to take you in here just to see the original mill race that was built sometime after 1810 by James McConnell, dug by James McConnell, dug by hand I might add. And you can see that the rocks have all been thrown up to the sides, and it's very shallow because this would have had to have been dug by hand. I hope McConnell had a lot of men helping him.
Holy cow, look at this tree.
That's a big tree.
Yeah, by our estimations, I think we figured this is probably about 5 foot in girth, and it's a red oak, as we identified already, which, from what you were saying to me, this is likely at least 200 years old.
200 years old.
So that would have been here.
Well, it would have been starting to grow right around when James McConnell was farming the land and building his mills.
Yeah. So should we cut it down?
That's a great table.
Let's do it. So we've made it all the way down to the end of the Upper Portage. It didn't seem as long as the other ones, I guess mainly because we were on bike paths most of the way. I think most of the time we spent was talking to people, wondering what we were doing. So I can still see that we still see the Deschênes ruins in the background here. So give us a sense of how this would have been when people would come here pulling their boats.
740 steps was the number that was put on by a voyageur for this portage. The first one was 750, the second one 643, this one 740. And I pasted off exactly to bring it right here, which actually gave me a good indication of where what settlers called the Deschênes landing was. This is a perfect spot when you consider all this limestone. You can look at the edges there that are carved by the aeons of current running through here. And it's a perfect spot to be launching your canoe to get onto the Chaudière Lake, which would lead all the way up to the Schatz Falls, or Shaw Falls, depending on how you want to call it. At this landing, essentially, you would have a clear shot up towards Aylmer, which brings us to the idea also that settlers taking their crops or going to get supplies in Wrightstown, canoeing was not going to last very long for the settlers. It wasn't going to be something that they wanted to have for too long. So they created a trail that went all the way from Deschênes Landing to Wrightstown and passed right through the McConnell farm. So what today is the Aylmer Road, they call the Britannia Road. What is the Rivermead Road was called the McConnell Road, and it brought you here to the Deschênes Landing. Later on, the Britannia Road goes all the way towards Aylmer, what today is Aylmer, and it became the Britannia Turnpike, as they called it, with a toll on each end, and it brought you to the Turnpike end, which became Aylmer. In 1804, that road was extended. I have one more spot to take you to, Andrew, just beyond the portage, because that is where the encampments were. That there is evidence that there were encampments there for millennia.
Perfect, let's check it out.
Okay. So Andrew, we're crossing this bridge here over a very swampy area. It's right after the end of the Upper Portage. And this bridge was built for the bicycle path. Beautiful, beautiful spot.
It is amazing. I actually did a shoot here this summer with a couple and it was just stunning.
So Andrew, this is the remnant of the great red oak forest. Deschênes, the place where the red oaks grow.
Oh, wow. Well, welcome to Bell's Bay. We walked down here past where the end of the portage was, and Rick was telling me that there's quite an interesting story behind this area as well.
Bell's Bay gets its name from Samuel Bell, who was the first settler to arrive here and clear his land. But this bay is identified by T.W. Edwin Souter back around 1905 as a place of indigenous encampment, possibly even an indigenous village. So if you walk along this bay at any time, particularly in the springtime, or after spring, when the water has really washed the rocks, you can find lots of artifacts, pottery and whatnot from pre-colonial times, but you can also find the detritus of colonial times as well, the industrial age. There was a sawmill that was right at the very end of the bay, Fraser's Mill, that the street, Fraser Street, gets its name from. So Andrew, last summer when people were trying to save this forest from a developer, which we eventually did, I walked along the beach to see if I could pick up some artifacts so that I could have a perfect illustration of why this needed to be preserved and prevent development. And in that one afternoon, I picked up all of these artifacts, some pre-colonial and colonial. And on this side here of the indigenous artifacts, I have some beautiful pieces of pottery. This is late woodland period pottery, and you can see the beautiful design on its edge. And this as well, the same thing. You can see that with a little stick they would make those indentations. This is a piece of worked stone. You can see that obviously has been fractured and broken by striking it, probably to make a scraping tool. Here we have an awl. This was used probably to pierce hides, for sewing hides together. And this is a piece of Kitchissippi chert. So this piece here, it shows some sign of being worked. Again, you have the fractured edges. And this is what was used. It's a very shiny, hard volcanic rock that was used for knives and arrowheads. And of the colonial period, you have, of course, the neck of a bottle. You have some ceramic here, a plate or a dish that is likely 19th century. And this is a lump, a very heavy lump of lead. And if you look at it, you can see that it is a crushed lead pipe from the industrial era.
So we're finished our latest video of the Upper Portage, but I just wanted to take a couple seconds to thank people who have been watching our videos, who have subscribed, and who have been giving us comments on what's been going on with these various videos that we're doing, and just relaying how much enjoyment they get about learning about our local area. Equally fun is the people that we meet when we're on some of these hikes, and who are interested in what's going on with what, first of all, what we're doing, because it looks kind of weird when we're trudging around with a camera, but then they're always interested in knowing what's going on with the history and where they can see these videos. So on that note, I'd also like to suggest and encourage people to share these videos whenever you can, and to get the ball rolling, just to let people know just how incredibly interesting this region is. Even as a kid, I was always amazed by the things I would find out about the region that were amazing to me, but I didn't read anywhere. They were just kind of stories that you'd hear here and there, or you'd find it in some obscure book. And I'm going to take the opportunity here too. We weren't planning on this, but I'd really like to thank Rick for his ridiculous knowledge about this area. As much as it sounds like we're just having a quick conversation, this information is so well thought out and so well researched. Anything that you hear has been researched to death from primary sources, primarily. And it just makes it that much more enjoyable to share, because we're not second guessing what we're talking about.
And I can't fly a drone, Andrew, and I'm not as anywhere near as good with a camera as you are. So thank you so much for this.
I'm not useless. Anyways, thanks again, and we'll see you in the next video,
Please like and subscribe.
for sure. Let's go this way.
Yeah.
We're heading home.